Here's the real truth. There are 8 million people in this city, and those teeming masses exist for the sole purpose of lifting the few exceptional people onto their shoulders. You, me, we're exceptional. I could squash you like a bug right now, but I'm offering you a choice. Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together. What we could create.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Would you believe it still makes me smile every time you say that?
Which
the
one?
Intro.
Oh, the intro.
It's still like.
It's so like.
To this day, I'm just like, don't laugh, don't laugh.
It's so. I don't know. Like, I mean, you see me like before I like say it and we start recording. I'm like, this doesn't get any easier. Like, I say the same words every episode, and I still am like,
yeah.
I hope I say it right.
Yeah, you nail it every time. Right. You got it every time, buddy. So good. So yeah, welcome to another episode of A Stark Contrast. So if you joined us for our mini Marvel number 4, you might have heard that Jeff and I are embarking on a new frontier in that this is the very first time that we're going back to back on episodes due to scheduling conflicts. So
life.
We're life in general. So yeah, you know, at this point we've finished the mini Marvel. We're starting on this new episode.
Episode number
25. And yeah, you know, we covered most of our recent topics in the mini Marvel. So for the latest, please go back and listen to that. And we promise we'll catch up with everything else in the next episode. But
today's episode and character, is this the first?
I was going to say, I feel like it's the very first true, quote unquote, true villain that we'll actually be covering, because Venom.
Sure. Anti-hero,
yeah,
maybe, depending who you're talking to.
Yeah, because there was very much a duo kind of character study, because the symbiote is its own standalone in so many ways, and Eddie Brock is another thing entirely.
So yeah, I think this is the
official first villain.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice, because I'm like, ooh, I get to make a cool graphic for the little villain, for once. So that's going to be awesome. But yeah, you know, all things considered, we can just jump into it.
Yeah.
You ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, also, this is a Spider-Man character, so.
Oh, yeah, we are.
This is capable.
It was because of No Way Home where I was like, we got to now.
We have to do
like he deserved one already before.
Yeah.
But I was like, we have to cover him now.
Yeah, exactly. So as always, we're not experts. We don't claim to be. We're just a couple of fans, nerds nerding out. Comments, questions, send them in. But today's character, as we've alluded to, is none other than the one and only Green Goblin, Norman Osborn.
Oh yeah, the goat.
The goat.
Oh man.
So this is an incredibly polarizing character, and also like depiction of this character that we'll obviously get into in the next God knows how many minutes.
Yeah.
But first things first.
Who is he?
Who is he? What is he? Why is he? So created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, as was many of the Spider-Man characters from this era. But as you noted, Jeff, like right from the get-go, I have a redacted note at the top of this document of mine. Which is a pop quiz.
Bro, we're not even into like we haven't even got into when he first appeared in the issue.
Exactly.
And you're already hitting me with a pop quiz on a back-to-back.
Gotta do it. Because speaking of our similar friend Venom and Eddie Brock, chicken and the egg. Which came first?
Damn. Oh no, these ones.
Pop quiz.
Oh.
Who came first?
Oh, Norman or
Norman
Gobby?
Osborn or the Green Goblin?
Wow. Can you have a villain with no backstory? Like, can you like?
That's an interesting thought, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of like from like a writer's, a creator's like point of view. It's like, do I have a character? It's like, let's say Spider-Man. Obviously, Spider-Man needs a villain.
Right.
Like, is it good? Like, does it have to be a human first who goes down this road that turns him to that villain, or is it straight up like this guy in a green suit showed up and he has super power, like invincible powers, enhanced strength type of thing,
right?
And then it's like they're like, oh, who is this mystery character? And you unwind, and it's like, oh, it's a Norman Osborn, Peter's best friend's dad,
right?
Which actually works like both ways. Now think about
I know.
it.
As you were talking it out, I was like,
who is this mystery like green goblin, quote unquote,
green menace?
You know, and then wow.
Tough now. Huh?
I thought it was easy, and then as I unwrapped the character, I was like, I don't know. Like, was it Norman first, and then eventually, as issues came about, they were like, ooh, like he develops this because of Oscorp.
What was your original thought?
My original thought?
Yeah.
I of course wanted to say Norman first,
just
because I feel like that relationship of Harry and Peter was always there.
Yeah.
Whoa. But maybe it was just them at first, and then like Goblin came out of and then it's slowly revealed that ooh. Wow. This is why I can't do pop quizzes, man. I overthink everything. Oh, I'm going to go. No hesitation. Just say it. Final answer. Goblin came first.
Well, Jeff, the answer is the Green Goblin.
Yes.
You're starting out real strong.
Yes. Bam.
So
call that
you did the power of deduction.
Deduction right there.
So indeed, in this instance, the Green Goblin actually appeared before Norman Osborn. And this is the part that's going to fascinate you a little bit, because the Green Goblin made his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 14. So this is essentially year 2 of Spider-Man in the books, July 1964.
Okay.
Whereas Norman Osborn didn't appear until Amazing Spider-Man number 37.
Oh my gosh.
Year 3-4?
Yeah.
In June 1966. So
2 years later?
2 years later, the Green Goblin is floating around in the Amazing Spider-Man atmosphere,
terrorizing, before
we even get a whiff of Norman Osborn and his bad cologne. Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy, right? So the highest grade of Amazing Spider-Man number 14 on eBay right about now at a 9.2, which is pretty damn good. That's like a a very fine, I don't know, no, near mint, I guess maybe kind of.
Yeah, because 10's the highest, right?
Right.
I mean, something's at 9.2.
Right.
Yeah.
Signed by Stan is currently going for $32,000.
Oh my. I wonder just who has these near mint condition.
Dude, and who had the foresight to be like, this is going to be something someday.
Yeah, in the 60s or maybe 7, but.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? But, you also have to think like, going down history lane. At this point, a publisher like DC has been established so much longer.
That's right. I forget DC's been around
than
just
Marvel.
as long. Yeah.
So you have collectors that are already getting into the groove of, like, oh, these are going to be worth something, or they are worth something.
Yeah.
I'm going to get ahead of the game, which is what it's like, not unsimilar to what people do now. Like, I'm a person who'll grab number ones no matter what it is. And then sometimes it goes somewhere, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then first appearances for new characters and such, it's the same thing. And so if you happen to be a kid or a collector in 1964 and you manage to get that book for 10, 20 cents at the time.
That's true. Yeah. Inflation.
So the highest grade is currently going for $32,000, and then Loosey gooseys are about $8,000. So those are the ones that aren't
Like
graded.
mid-grade? Or
They're just like in a plastic, like how many of mine are.
$8,000 still?
$8,000 still at a 7.5. So that's even very fine. So if it's a near minty, maybe about 10, 15.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so about a third. And then for the first appearance of Norman Osborn, he's not as much. Green Goblin is obviously, not more important, but more relevant or significant is the word. Norman Osborn's first appearance goes for about at a 9.0, $3,000. So still pretty decent.
I'll take anything that has grand at the end of it. I mean, I'm not gonna say no.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, do you recall your first exposure to this character? Was it once
100%,
again? Yeah,
100%. 2002, baby. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
I just imagine like during all the Civil War, like the giant Gotham font. 2000, and then it's just baby you looking at that screen, looking at Green Goblin for the first time.
I don't remember. I don't know if I don't even know if I remember going to a theater to see it, but I just remember Sam Raimi's trilogy is just incredibly captivating.
Yeah, because how old were you back then?
You
were like 7 years old, right?
Well, I was 1994, so 8.
1990. Oh my god.
8 years old.
You were in third grade.
Second grade.
So did your parents did they bring you to films like this when you were little?
I don't know if my parents brought. I think my cousin, she and then my Lola they would I would kind of be with them on the weekends. So like my cousin would like take me, her and her obviously husband or boyfriend at the time, they would like take me to movies and stuff on the weekend. So I don't know if I watched it in the theater or I was on DVD, but I just remember seeing it and I was just like captivating.
Amazing.
Toby's amazing. And then you throw in Norman's, Willem Dafoe's version of Norman and Green Goblin, and you're like, this guy's scary. Exactly. that ending death fight scene was always the one that stuck with me the most. Like that dialogue stuck with me the most.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course we'll get into that too. For me, I think, I kind of call myself a peculiar teen because like when people would be like, when relatives would be like, oh, what do you want for your birthday? Or what do you want for Christmas or something? I would always kind of be like, oh, I want this Beethoven classical CD set. Like it's $80. It's $45. It's really expensive. I want it, But this was also the time when like Barnes and Noble was getting bigger and bigger, and they were finally starting to carry comic books and books.
Oh, okay.
So for me, I would get these gift cards, and I would go buy like every Oscar Wilde, Jane Austen book they had, but then I would also go to the comic book aisle and then buy those like bound collections. And so that's why Amazing Spider-Man, the old stuff, had such rooting with me, and that's why I grew up with Gwen Stacy, because I would buy these compilation books. And so with that, not only came great responsibility.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I was very much immersed in the Sinister Six and the classic Rogues Gallery for Spider-Man, which of course includes the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
So I grew up with him very early on, in the mid 90s. But yeah. So let's get into the contrast. Here's the, I have 3 cards. I thought I had more cards for the Green Goblin. So
I love that purple and green.
Dude.
It's so, obviously it's very cartoony and animated, but it's like, it's so iconic with like the purple hood and everything.
And also, I did note, this is a common thing in color theory and also graphic design, but purple and green are the colors that are complementary. So you'll often see these because the color combination is so appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
And it does represent something specific, but we'll get into that a little later with aesthetics. But I do have 3 cards. I seriously thought I had so many more of the Green Goblin, but it seems like they kind of skipped over because there are different goblins. So I have a lot of goblin cards, but not Norman Osborn.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to read, how about 1992 Marvel Masterpieces by Joe Jusko? The Green Goblin's insanity has possessed 3 men over the years. First Norman Osborn, the now deceased creator of the Goblin's costume and weaponry, then his son Harry, who has recently adopted the role again, and finally criminal psychiatrist Barton Hamilton. All have used the Goblin's ghoulish tricks for the same purpose, to try and destroy the amazing Spider-Man. All have failed. But the Goblin's criminal legacy lives on in the succession of criminals who have used his mad methods under the name the Hobgoblin. So right there, you got your taste of 3 goblins, and then another kind of goblin, which is the Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
You're going to hear the word goblin a lot in this episode.
Someone keep a goblin counter.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it's kind of what you know about this character and how he's presented in pop culture is not far from his roots.
Okay.
And I kind of want to do a segue and read the secondary card, because this might be the one that resonates with you a little better.
Okay.
The Green Goblin's hatred of Spider-Man grows with their every encounter. Haunted by memories of abuse suffered from his father, the original Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, has abandoned his happy life to resume his father's role. So this is Harry. See?
Oh, that's Harry as Green Goblin. Okay.
So, armed with the knowledge that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, he has vowed to destroy the man he blames for ruining his life.
It's literally Spider-Man 2.
Literally Spider-Man 2. And also just like, it's, again, even if I hadn't said the Harry part, that's the Green Goblin.
So how is the Green Goblin in the comics, did he get, like, does he have, like, powers? Is there a serum?
Yes.
Okay.
Which we'll definitely get into.
Okay. I was like,
yeah. And again, I kind of mentioned it before off mic that the similarities between the comic book version of this character to the cinematic version are so strangely accurate.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Like they really,
that's good to know.
They really didn't deviate. Like there are nuances and reasoning and logistics that they changed.
Sure. I would say the only thing that was significantly different is obviously the costume.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
we'll get into the aesthetics later. Yeah.
So let's start it off with the comic book version. Norman Virgil Osborn.
Nice.
PhD.
Of course.
He studied chemistry and electrical engineering in college, plus a number of courses in business administration, all at ESU, which is Empire State University. Which is eventually, eventually Harry and Peter and Gwen's alma mater.
Yeah.
So they basically all go to the same school, just at different times in different moments in time. And so while at ESU, Norman proved to be really intelligent. So he was obviously an above average student, but he was also kind of one that didn't necessarily want to do the work.
I can relate.
So he didn't
school-wise for sure. I'm like, I don't want to work.
Like it's almost like he was so intelligent that he wanted to figure out a way to not have to do the work.
Sure.
And he succeeded. So
I just didn't want to do work. I just was not intelligent.
I know.
That's how
like,
lazy I was.
Man, if I had just applied myself a little more.
I tell myself all the time, like, man, maybe if I read just a little bit more. But nah.
I'm like, I made the dean's list, but like 2 quarters. You know what I mean? Oh man. But so like Norman would do these things like he didn't want to study for a test, but he knew he could ace the test if he just done it. But instead of doing that, he would do things like create like technology that would help him cheat.
Sure.
This seems a little weird.
Yeah.
Like it's like the effort is misplaced.
It's like it's the same destination, just a different way to get
like
there.
Super different way of the journey is definitely different. And so he did this to the point where even one of his friends was just like they had to rat him out. And so his friend, get this name, okay? Ned Tobolowsky. Ned.
Yeah.
Not the same Ned.
Yeah.
But a Ned,
Why does that name
nonetheless.
sound? Have we brought up that name before on the show?
No, I don't think so.
That sounds so familiar.
Tobolowsky.
But, okay.
Oh, maybe I did. I don't recall. I get a little crossed with Ned Leeds, but yeah, no. So Ned basically rats Norman out, and he nearly gets expelled because of that.
Okay.
Which is like, for him, he's like, whatever, I don't care. I'm smart. Yeah, like he's too smart. And yeah, he almost gets expelled. But during his college days, he ended up befriending one of the professors.
Okay.
This man named
Dr. Connors?
I know. I wonder what Connors was doing around this time. I don't quite remember college years, but this man named Professor Mendelstrom, who we'll talk about more a little later. So in the MCU, I love that I can say that now. Norman Osborn is portrayed by Willem Dafoe, and he first made his appearance, in the Raimi trilogy, 2002 to 2007. So that is 20 years this year of Spider-Man in film.
Yes. Holy crap.
Not counting Spider-Man, the Japanese and the 70s ones, but in modern cinema. 20 years. That's so insane. And 20 years since we've seen this character on screen. And then just now seeing him 3 months later.
I was going to say, Willem's only played this character twice on screen.
Isn't that wild? See, and I was contending with myself after the Gwen Stacy episode that we did. I was thinking, like, during Spider-Man 2 or 3, when Harry was going through the motions, but Norman was in those flashbacks,
heard his voice.
Right? Only?
Maybe
I thought he was in the mirror.
Reflection. He was in a reflection.
Okay.
Yes, he was in a reflection.
Okay, so he did have a cameo.
3 times, yeah.
Okay, but he was still, anyway. He was incredible for somebody who's only portrayed him so much. And of course, directed by Sam Raimi, with stories written by David Koepp, Alvin Sargent, Alfred Goh, Miles Miller, Michael Chabon, Yvonne Raimi, and Sam Raimi. And then reprising his role in Spider-Man No Way Home, directed by John Watts, written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. And so this is not a quiz.
Yeah.
But this would actually entail you watching Amazing Spider-Man. Do you recall that there is, in fact, a Norman Osborn in the Amazing Spider-Man films?
Oh, God. This is like, it's like that's like the 2 movies I don't remember.
I know. Well, in your defense, and this is something I thought of after the Gwen Stacy episode again, is that there was a character at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 when the characters are on what appears to be the raft or in jail, if you will, and there's a shadowy figure walking along and going by each cell. And he has a hat on, and he goes into the cell and he plucks off his hat and he says something like, I don't know what he says. I haven't seen it in a long time. But there was never clarification of who that character was. There never was.
Of course.
Right? Exactly.
Of course.
And then we never got it because there was never a third film.
Yeah.
And so, albeit briefly and uncredited, actor Chris Cooper was actually cast as Norman Osborn. That was Norman Osborn kind of coming back from his death state. So so that whole thing went down. But no, he is actually emerging from the shadows, and here he is again to wreak havoc with Sinister Six. And it just never happened. Yeah. And of course, directed by Mark Webb, with stories written by Alex Kurtzman, Roberta Orci, Jeff Pinkner, and James Vanderbilt. So when it gets to Osborn himself, I wanted to read what Wikipedia had down for the character before we get into the rest of the stuff, because it's pretty much nails it. And it's exactly what we have heard many times before, and kind of how we might even describe Norman Osborn ourselves. Yeah. In that he's a scientist and the CEO of Oscorp who tests an unstable strength enhancer on himself and develops a crazed alternate personality. Using Oscorp equipment, he later becomes the costume villain. The media dubs his alter ego the Green Goblin. And then Norman develops animosity for Spider-Man after the hero refuses to join him, makes constant attempts to get back at the superhero. Ironically, he quickly takes a liking to Peter and sees himself as a father figure for the boy while ignoring his own son, Harry. And I'm pretty sure I wrote the second paragraph, so that's not Wikipedia. That's me.
It's literally Spider-Man 1, though.
Spider-Man 1, right? Exactly. And
that's
I'm
something of a scientist myself.
I love how many people did he not say that in No Way Home as well, right? Yeah, and I love that how many people reacted to it.
There's a lot of callbacks.
There's 19 years between those films. Yeah, so good. So that's quite honestly what the embodiment of Norman Osborn in the comic books is as well. That he is this powerful businessman who has the son who he is hoping to cultivate into a power man like himself, a power broker, if you will, like himself.
Yeah.
But instead, and it's the same thing, and we'll get into a little later, like with the Green Goblin and seeing how formidable Spider-Man is and wanting to join and become this ultimate power together, ultimately getting refusal because he's a superhero and he's a supervillain.
Yeah.
It just makes him want him more.
Yeah.
You know what
100%.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're going to take it back a little bit and go back to the roots because, like these cards mentioned, it's very much kind of like, it's that the whole thing of the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. And so with that saying is not only true between Norman and Harry, but also Norman and his father. So we're going to talk about Amberson Osborn. And so you're going to hear some similarities here. Let me tell you now.
I'll call it out. I'll be like, that's Spider-Man 1. That's
Yeah, so Amberson Osborn was a businessman who claimed his parents, his parents, wow. Oh my gosh, you can tell we've done back-to-back episodes.
Oh, yeah.
So Amberson Osborn was a businessman who claimed his patents and his inventions were always stolen by others. So
Interesting.
there's this joke from an old episode of I Love Lucy where like Fred is like, oh yeah, you just gotta, when you got an idea, you gotta work, you gotta make sure you cement that it's yours. And then Ethel says something like, yeah, he's never forgiven Edison for making the light bulb. And so it's kind of like that where you're not quite sure if Amberson is a legitimate inventor.
Yeah.
Because, that guy took my idea and that guy took my idea.
It's like the premise of the Spider-Man PS4 game.
Yeah, actually. And so that, of course, that kind of egotism and that kind of boasting ultimately leads to his failure because, he becomes so burdened and so obsessed with the fact that he is not the genius that he thinks he is, that it just brings him down. And so the failure leads to rage. The rage is then imposed upon Norman. And then this bred Norman to accept nothing but success and be wealthy, to gain power.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the persona for this child. And so I mean, this is kind of like a story that you just see so often in pop culture, and I just like binge Succession, for instance.
Oh, nice.
And so it's kind of like Succession in many ways, where what's the older kid's name? But the son that the show is primarily. Do you watch it?
No.
Oh, you don't watch it?
No,
Shoot.
I've been meaning to. Someone says that you need to start it, and I'm like, okay,
dude, it's really great. Yeah, it's really, really great. But the middle son, let's say, is very, very parallel to Norman Osborn in that he has this father that's very much controlling, very much power hungry, and almost refuses to give the children the business. He won't die. He just refuses to die. And this son is so you can tell he was bred to be like his father. Yeah. And then the father doesn't want him to be like him, but they're so alike because of that. So that's kind of like the reflection we see with Norman and Amberson is that he's trying not to be like his father, but by doing that, he's being exactly like his dad. Yeah. And so even Norman described his father as one to blame others for his failures. And he would, like in many of these cases, he took it out on Norman and his mother in various forms of abuse. So much, this is crazy, so much that Osborn killed the family dog Norman killed the family dog, quoted saying it was one less mouth to feed.
Jesus Christ, the dog?
Right.
How? Yeah, try to depict that on a movie screen. Exactly. See what happens.
Oh yeah, I would never fly.
Yeah, see what happens. Yeah.
No. That John Wick. What's the other one? What's the one with Will Smith? The movie with Will Smith, and I was like, oh yeah, God. You guys killed the dog. Yeah, you just can't do that. And so, honestly, in other, genres of film and whatnot, that basically constitutes a true, like a psychopath.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I agree.
What did they say? Like, there's like the terrible three or whatever.
Yeah.
That if they fall out of a tree, they hit their head,
or
they pee in the bed, or they kill animals.
Yeah.
Psychopath.
It's not, nope.
Yeah. So we've not yet seen, and I don't expect to see, an Amberson Osborn in the MCU. But do you remember anything like mentioned? Like, was there? I almost want to be like, was there a painting over the mantle in the Osborn mansion of this guy?
I mean,
anything that he ever mentioned.
I feel like the most I would assume was mentioned was Norman, like, oh, my father, blah 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 blah.
Because that
was it.
Yeah, because I think the painting was Norman and Harry.
Yeah.
Even, maybe. Yeah, so they just don't. Yeah, and this is a recurring theme with Osborn, is that there's so many characters that kind of came into the comics to kind of forge this villain to become who he is at the end, but we just never see them in the MCU form. So it's kind of interesting if you ask me. And so with that, we have Harry Osborn, who, if you watched any Spider-Man film, you should be very familiar with Harry.
Yup.
And I mean, sadly, he's just a character that's utterly destined to follow in his father's footsteps. And it's kind of like the curse of the Osborn kids. They just, the father is like the father is like the father, and it just keeps going, right? Where does it end?
It's like a typical like a son come into like a rich family. Like his dad is very well, well versed, and then the son just wants to be as good as their dad.
Yeah.
But they know they can never be their dad.
Yeah.
And so they just do anything that they can to impress their dad.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think you got like glimpses of that in the first Spider-Man trilogies and everything with Harry. And he's just like, oh man, he just wants to impress his father.
Yeah. Like anything for the father's love. Like you can tell that it's kind of like he's struggled with like not wanting to hate his father, but also he wants so desperately to be loved by his father. Yeah. Knowing that it's like futile. Like
he's like, look, I can do this, but he's like, no, not good enough.
Yeah, and that and that pain is so present, with both comic book and cinematic Harry, who of course in the MCU is portrayed by James Franco in the Raimi trilogy, and then Dane DeHaan in the Amazing Spider-Man films directed by Mark Webb. And so these two are two very different depictions of Harry, but they have the same rooted issues. And it's just occurring to me kind of now, for instance, in that these two Harrys are kind of like how you might even compare the new Batman, right? Like he's different. He's a more emotional looking, or
100%. Yeah.
What some might say is a more emotional version.
Just a different take.
Just a different take.
Yeah.
But still very at the base of himself, the same character. Yeah. Same damaged character.
Yeah, 100%.
And of course, we do see both inevitably became the Green Goblin in their respective films. Yep. Did you have a favorite between the two, by the way?
I mean, from what I remember about the ASM one.
Yeah. They were both kind of. I remember, like, they had for Spider-Man 3. They had, when they released the soundtrack. Yeah. The score, they tried to like upsell. When CD sales actually meant something, they put lenticular like cards in front of every CD, and they had 3 different like covers, and one was like, I think it was Spider-Man and the black suited Spider-Man and then Green Goblin. And I was like, yay, I can't wait to get this. I hope I get Spider-Man. I don't care which one. And then I got the Green Goblin. So I was really upset.
I think it's just also a testament to how great Willem is as Green Goblin.
Right.
So where like yeah, James Franco was, a great Harry Osborn.
But his Green Goblin Jr.
It wasn't like it was there, but it wasn't. It's just Willem is just in a division of his own, when it came to just like the maniacal part of it,
right?
And just the whole, just like, I don't even I'm not doing this to, I'm just, it's like almost like Joker, is like, I'm not doing this for money. I don't want. I'm just doing this because this is fun.
Yeah.
And that's maniacal.
Yeah.
Like it's psychotic.
Because I feel like Harry, at least the Green Goblin 2, his presence was almost like a parody. It wasn't even an homage for his father. It was like a parody. Like he once again is trying to be like his father.
Yes.
And it's just not clicking because it's not who he is.
But then also with Harry's Green Goblin, he was, even when he was Green Goblin, he was still Harry, because he obviously teamed up with Peter, which is, which makes for a great,
that's right.
Which makes for a great climax of the film, because obviously because Sandman and Eddie Brock and Venom.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's a 2-on-2 thing. Yeah. For the story, it made sense, but if we're talking just strictly like Green Goblin, psychotic maniacs,
it's all about Norman Osborn, right?
It's Willem, it's Norman.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really tough to to put them on Willem's level.
Exactly. And so, I don't know how much you know about this at all. So this is going to be kind of a surprise for you, Jeff, and maybe some of our listeners too. But would you believe that in Norman Osborn's family tree, it also contains a branch for Elizabeth Liz Allen?
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
On what connection?
Right. So Liz Allen, portrayed by Sally Livingstone in the Raimi trilogy, or at least the first Raimi film. She's the girl on the bus that's like, don't even think about it, Parker.
Oh, wow.
That's supposed to be Liz Allen. And then, of course, later portrayed by Laura Harrier in the John Watts trilogy, or at least the first film.
Yeah.
Who is also Adrian Toomes' daughter, aka the Vulture. So she was Liz Toomes.
What a twist,
Allen.
by the way.
Yeah. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, legit did not see that coming. I was like,
right.
That's good right there.
So picture, if you will, James Franco and the don't even think about it girl, or Dane DeHaan. Not even Dane DeHaan. We don't have a Harry Osborn. Oh my gosh!
I was gonna bring this up later.
Dane DeHaan and Laura Harrier, I guess. But yeah, what? Sorry.
I was like,
yeah, we don't have a Harry.
There is no Harry. There is no Osborn.
Yes.
In the John Watts.
That's so true.
And I was gonna ask you. I was like, do you like that, or like, are you okay with that? Even though this is, the first trilogy in the MCU, but there could be a second trilogy where that is potential. Maybe they'll go back to that storyline, but like, how do you feel about Tom Holland's Spider-Man not having a...
I think that's okay because, again, not to reference Gwen Stacy too much, but the Gwen Stacy episode, we mentioned how they had this coffee bean crew of friends that always met up at the same spot. They were always together. They always had this kind of camaraderie no matter what they were all going through.
Yeah.
And I feel like John Watts so perfectly captured that essence in the trio that he has with Ned and MJ and Pete, that they're not necessarily replacing Harry and Gwen, but they're really supplementing a version of them. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it bothered me at all too much because, like, honestly, until you just asked, I didn't really think about it. I didn't feel like there was room to, let alone that I had to.
Sure.
Like, it's great to see Harry Osborn, but in the same token, we have seen 2 Harry Osborns. And so it's not, for me, it's not a place where I'm like, I want to see him done, quote unquote, right.
Yeah.
Like I'm not that
Yeah.
kind of fan. I'm just like, oh, it's kind of nice to not have to wonder. Like you wonder where that character is, but you don't necessarily require him to be there.
Yeah, and maybe it was like a creative decision too on John Watts or just the writers of that trilogy. Like, I don't know if we want to do it again. It's already been done twice,
right?
And the way Gwen Stacy is and Amazing Spider-Man, which is really a good portrayal of Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? Let's try to move away from it. But and then keep it MCU. And then now they're probably like, okay, well, this trilogy did pretty well.
Yeah.
And it's obviously the ending of the home series for Tom Holland. It obviously ended in a way that the story can definitely continue.
It can be so much more broad if they want to.
Yeah, especially. I mean, I think I forgot what episode I said this in, but like this is like now Spider-Man is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like with that new homemade suit in his apartment, fighting crime through a police tracker.
Which by the way, real quick, did you see that concept art by Ryan Meinerding? It's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm gonna buy that poster the second I see it.
So it's
he's
like,
so good. Anyway,
like we said, like this is. I don't think this is also ever like happened yet. Is having a second trilogy.
Yeah.
Have a second trilogy with the same character.
Hasn't.
And there's only one comic book character that could happen with, and it's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yeah. It's very true because like even with Cap, like we're getting a Cap. Thor. Kind of.
Thor 4, yes.
Yeah, because I was going to say...
But there's not going to be 2 more after that.
Yeah, no, there's no. I don't think so.
100%. No way.
No,
no way.
And even then, we're going to see Jane Foster. So, yeah. I mean, because I was going to say with Cap, it's, like Falcon is taking on the mantle now as Captain America.
I might be standing corrected in the next 5 years. But,
Who knows?
but when it comes to marketability and just universally known character... Spider-Man is the easiest person to give a second trilogy, and because Tom Holland is just so beloved as Peter Parker, and then now he's in this like people were talking crap on it. They were just like, he's still in high school. Like,
that's me.
Give us, like come on, like
give me an adult Spider-Man.
He's just Iron Boy Jr.
See, that really bothered me because I didn't.
Look at him now, motherfucker! Look at him now.
Look at him now.
He's his own man fighting crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Out of his apartment.
I love it with his sewing machine skills. Hell yeah, Peter. I don't know. I would love to see Harry. I would love to see his version of Harry, if need be. Like, does he need a goblin? I don't know, but would I love to see it? Yes, I would.
I mean, there was those rumors of Ned.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see it happening.
Was like,
I don't see it happening.
I don't know. Maybe, but it's also like,
I don't know about that. And also because, not to stray too far off the central topic, but again, Spider-Man has such a huge rogues gallery. They can take him anywhere. Like, again, they've taken him to space. They've taken him to all these different places and countries. And now it's time to keep him home. And so instead, we're going to bring the villains to him. And what if more of those villains and anti-heroes came through that portal and maybe Strange messed up and maybe they're not all gone.
Yeah. I mean, there is a Kraven the Hunter movie coming out soon.
Exactly. And I mean, I feel like Sony's still trying to push out the baby that is black and silver. God, I don't really want it. But, there's that. We might get Black Cat and Silver Sable.
Let's do Black Cat.
Let's just do Black Cat.
Black Cat, baby.
Let's just do let's just bring Felicia Hardy into the mix. We're really good. But as I was gonna say is that Liz Allen and Harry Osborn are married in the comic books, and so the faces that Jeff makes during these comments are so good.
It's interesting.
It's interesting because imagine these pairings, and you're just like, huh?
Because I'm just putting the live action versions together.
Right.
Interesting.
It's very interesting, and so again, like Liz is from their high school days, and so they essentially grew up together. She was kind of dating Pete, and she was kind of dating Flash Thompson more so, off and on, and then eventually dates Harry, but they don't get serious until their adult lives. So by proxy, they have a child whose name is Normie Osborn.
Normie.
And Normie's still a baby.
Jesus
He's kind of like,
Christ.
I want to say he's like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 now. So yeah, so Norman Osborn, Stormin Norman has a grandson named Normie Osborn. And so if Harry's not careful, the Osborn curse may continue.
Jeez.
How evil do I feel with a cat on my lap saying that? Now, if you were to say, does Norman Osborn have friends? I want to say no. He doesn't really have friends. And
is Dr. Octavius, they're not friends anymore.
I mean, yeah, right?
Yeah,
like even that, they're not even
Okay.
friends anymore. They're associates at best. But, like we mentioned near the top of the show, Dr. Mendel Strom. So, I guess he's like the closest thing to a friend that Osborn must have had back in the day. But he was a professor at ESU. His early research was on a chemical that would provide enhanced strength in its test subjects. So this these experiments essentially drew Osborn to kind of befriend the professor, I guess you could say. And of course, Osborn fucked around with the formula, and ultimately, eventually, the same formula would turn Osborn into the Green Goblin.
Of course.
And so later in the comics, basically Strom starts embezzling money from Oscorp, because who wouldn't? And then he goes to prison. So it's a short-lived association. And then later on, he comes back, he reemerges, and he tries to kill Osborn. So you can tell Norman Osborn really surrounds himself with people who really, I don't know. There's an energy about him.
Yeah, this is like the story you're telling me, like the background. It's reminding me of the Spider-Man PS4 story.
Yeah, it's very similar, right?
Like he's
because doesn't he have a rat in the PS4 game too?
a rat.
Yeah, like somebody who's like that works in the lab, and maybe. Stole from him.
It was like I was pertaining to the fact of like he's creating like this substance, this thing to like.
Yeah.
He wants to cure people, but it ends up being something that's like totally freaking dangerous.
Right.
And and obviously Norman in that game that's other media. We'll probably get more into it later, but that Norman is not Green Goblin, but he's keeping Harry. He's doing treatment on Harry.
Right.
That looks very like as if he's going to become the Goblin at some point, and maybe in the sequel. I don't know. I'm excited for that sequel, but yeah.
I gotta say that was a pretty good jump scare in the game too. Like when I think, was it Harry or something, comes up to the glass and like hits the glass.
It looks like symbiote-ish.
It looks
almost.
like a symbiote. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you're right. It's very interesting, and it calls back to how Osborn has always been rooted in science and in technology.
Yeah.
And so much so that in the books, he and Professor Strom, they formed, they obviously did the chemistry together without love chemistry. They created all these things, but they also became business partners. And of course, Norman's the one that had the money. So because he had the money and he put forth the financing, he called it Oscorp. Because of course.
Yeah.
But do you remember there is an actual Dr. Strom in the first Raimi film?
Dr. Strom.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'll tell you right now, I have not watched Spider-Man 1 in at least 10 years. At least. So I do remember him. But I don't remember him so distinctly that the comic book version sounds like him at all. And he isn't. He's quite different.
Is he just like a teacher or something?
He's just a scientist. He's like a guy at Oscorp.
Is that the guy who died?
Yes.
Oh, the guy who's
It's the guy.
He was like Norman. He was like,
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was merely a scientist to help to further the goblin serum, and then he got killed by Osborn.
Norman?
That's him. You remember the guy with the glasses, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
the salt and
Pain.
pepper
That
hair.
was scary. That was
pretty scary, actually.
That
yeah.
transition from
Yeah.
Norman to Goblin, you're
Yeah.
like, whoa.
Yeah, so good. I mean, he was chosen with reason, right?
Yeah.
And so, as I mentioned, like they created Oscorp together in Sony versus MCU. Not so much. It was all kind of Norman's baby.
Yeah.
But it's noted as a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation. And so that brings us to our second pop quiz. How you feeling, buddy?
I mean, I'm such a Willem Dafoe stan. Like, I just want to quote him for the rest of the episode.
Yeah. I mean, you can... Come on, give us your best.
That sense of yours. Oh, it's something else. Norman's on sabbatical, honey.
I love Willem
All
Dafoe.
the power in the world. Too weak to take it.
Oh, my Lord. Coughing.
It's so good.
So good. All right. So, highlighting the 25 largest fictional companies, what did Forbes
Rank Oscorp.
rank Oscorp based on revenue income in 2007?
There's an article on this?
Yes. And I'll put it in the show notes so that everyone
There's
can
like a
read
legit Forbes article.
There is a legitimate Forbes article on the top, I think, 25 largest fictional corporations.
Can you give me another example of another? So, like, are we talking like Wayne Industries type of thing?
Wayne Industries, Luther Industries, all of those. All of them are in here.
What else is there?
But it doesn't stop there. Like, it's every bit of science fiction, anybody and everybody is in here. If there's a corporation that's fictional, it's on there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So among the 25, where does Oscorp sit?
Wow.
Based on income in 2007.
In
it's
2007.
very specific.
So this article came out in 2007. Mm-hmm. 2007 is when Spider-Man 3 came out.
Yes.
For some reason, I always want to go to like the part where Oscorp is doing horrible. They're tanking because of Goblin.
Because of Goblin, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good.
And then I also think of the PS4 game where Norman's on a political thing and like this thing gets out, one bad article comes out, one bad story comes out, and it's like Oscorp, it's like, oh, Oscorp's going down. I told you, he's a menace. The Green Goblin, you're working with Spider-Man, they're both masked menaces, terrorizing the streets of New York.
J. Jonah Jameson once again.
I knew you two were working together.
Parker.
Parker, where are you? I have no idea.
That's my contribution.
25.
2000.
I want to say the latter half. Okay. Let's break it down. He ain't top 10. Oscorp ain't top 10.
Right.
They've had some bad PR. They're horrible at PR. I'm really telling you.
As Kate Bishop would say, they need to work on their brand.
Yeah, they are horrible with PR.
Yeah.
Like they need to know how to keep things under wraps.
Yeah.
I would say not top 5, not top 12.
Okay.
I'll say that.
Okay.
Ooh.
So we're going 13 to 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm really leaning towards more of like minimum 18. That's
minimum.
Yeah. But I don't believe they're dead last.
Okay.
So there's a very small window.
Yeah.
I'm flexing between that. 17, 18.
Okay.
Ooh. I feel like 22 to 25 is... they struggle, bad, horrible PR nightmares, but they have, because they have so many different divisions, they're able to stay afloat income revenue wise. This is me just being a freaking like diving deep right now.
Your Forbes hat is on. All right.
Okay, I want to go. Ooh. They're gonna be like top 12. I'm gonna be like, wow, I suck. I want to say let's go 17.
17. Edge of 17.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Final answer.
Yeah.
With 3.1 billion, Oscorp ranked number 23.
Damn it! Oh my god! I gave them too much credit. I gave them too much credit.
Yeah.
Then.
So
wow.
the revenue income in 2007 was roughly 3.1 billion. At 23.
And I was like, I know that's not a lot at that time. Like,
yeah.
Like for a company.
But that's wild,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so again, I'll link the full list in the show notes. But Chom from Dune ranked number 1 with 1.7 trillion.
Oh.
Interesting, right? See, and that's what I mean is that it's not only comic book, it's not only Marvel.
Dune?
Every single corporation or fictional industry
I mean, I get it, yeah.
was put in it. And I was like, oh, okay, Dune. Yeah,
What
that
other...
makes sense. Yeah, there's like you mentioned, like there's Wayne Industries. There's all these, every single corporation is in there. And it's kind of interesting because it's like there's stuff in there that you're just like, what? Who would have said Dune on this list? But the figures, everything that they came up with, like kudos to this article, like journalist, because
there's a journalist, financial person working hard on this fictional
right?
article.
Oh my gosh. Especially for 2007. That's kind of wild. So you didn't get that one, but you got the first one. It's still okay. 1 out of 2. You're doing 50-50.
I mean, I'm glad at least my process of deduction
yeah, it's working.
made total sense.
Yeah,
Some
it made
total
great
sense.
Yeah. So when it comes to powers, I mean, Norman Osborn with himself, he's kind of like a force of nature, right? It's not all brute strength and that sort. He, again, he's kind
smart.
he's very smart, very intelligent, scary smart kind of guy. But we'll talk about the Green Goblin in particular when it comes to powers. Oh God. This is when we start getting down the dark rabbit hole of things and the hows and whys of how certain things manifest within villains like this. And so when Osborn was a child, his dad, the champion, his father, locked him alone in their mansion during a thunderstorm. And so it was punishment. He deemed it like that Norman needed to kind of harden and not be so scared and timid by the norm. And this is the point in which Osborn begins to manifest what we now know as the persona that becomes the Green Goblin. And so, like, imagine I don't know how many rooms does a mansion have? I think a 20-room mansion.
20-room mansion? Let's go 20 bedrooms, yeah.
Imagine a 20-bedroom mansion, which is gigantic, dark. There are no lights, nothing. It's a thunderstorm, and this small child is locked in it. Yeah. Left to his own, his own, whatever you want to call it, and he starts hearing that cackle. Oh yeah. So and so I just imagine it so theatrically, like even though it's a comic book, but I imagine what they could have done with it, which does very much remind me of the kind of treatment that Sam Raimi did in the first film, where it is thunder and it's Osborn in this dark mahogany,
and he's starting to like transition.
He's transitioning into this maniacal, diabolical alter ego that starts to take over. And so I feel like not only did they choose Sam Raimi to direct those films because he comes from a horror background, but also because of things like this that are derived from the comic book lore. And so, with the first Raimi film, that's almost synonymous to that kind of backstory. And with the Goblin himself, it's not unlike it, like the comic book version. He has a performance enhancer. He develops dissociative identity disorder, DID. And so they kind of refined that idea, I think, more in the cinematic scape because they wanted to give it a more realistic version.
Yeah.
For lack of better wording, but I thought that was pretty on point. And so, whereas in the comics, gosh, the process is similar as much as it's different because it seems more drawn out in the comic books. So after he gets Strom put away for embezzling the money, Osborn begins to start working on this formula more and more and more to better it because he can do it better.
Yeah.
Because he's Norman Osborn. And that formula, whereas the cinematic one was more of a performance enhancer, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
In the comics, it's more of like it augmented human physique to superhuman levels.
Yeah.
So you see the
like a super soldier
verbiage
serum in a way. Okay.
I mean, it's similar to that, right? Like that's the most easy way to say it.
Yeah,
it's the easiest way to say it. And so Osborn worked to perfect that formula in the books, and he fails. He, like any mad scientist, fails and fails and fails, and he keeps insisting that he can do it better. And he went so dirty with it that he even gave it to Strom's assistant without his knowledge.
Oh, wow.
And the dude had a terrible reaction to it. Ooh. He mutated into this red blob thing, and then he started killing people.
Oh.
It's okay.
Okay, wrong way. Oops.
Try again. And so and then Harry, this is about the time when Harry's starting to catch on to what his father is doing, and that his father isn't necessarily a sound man. And so Harry kind of inserted himself into the situation, and he tried to botch the formula.
Okay.
I don't know if he does that in the film.
I'm trying to remember how the transition went.
Right.
All I really remember was Harry was having a conversation with with Norman, in his head, and he's in the mirror, and that's when Norman's like, "Avenge me!" He's like, "No!" And he breaks the mirror, and it reveals the goblin stuff.
The laboratory, but not the laboratory, but the stuff. Yeah, you're right. The stuff,
the secret area room, and I'm like, did Harry because that's where Toby and
the goblin.
Yeah, they got into a fight. Because that's why Harry's face was messed up at the end.
Yeah.
But I'm like, was there a transition of him becoming goblin in the sense of him taking that serum or anything? I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't remember. Maybe I'm making this up, but I feel like he's shown grabbing the serum. And then that's the last you see of him, and then he comes back as Goblin, right?
He's like,
yeah.
But you never see him
you never see him
actually,
right? You never see him go through the motions, and so in the books, he tried to botch the second batch, and that consequently rendered unstable, and it literally blew up in Osborn's face, and so Osborn goes to the hospital. He awakens. And he kind of has the moment that Toby has in the first film where he wakes up and he's like, whoa, I feel different. And he's starting to get the enhanced abilities. Yeah. But unfortunately, the chemical exposure did affect him mentally. And so that's when the instability starts to sink in.
Yeah.
And that's when the Green Goblin persona really starts to shine. So it's starting to officially draw a line in the sand of his brain that there are two people in there.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And
so I would love to talk more about Harry, but again, he's one of those characters that we can obviously cover on his own and probably will in due time. And so as far as weapons are concerned, what more is there to say other than the pumpkin bombs, right?
Pumpkin bombs and glider.
And the glider.
That's it.
It's kind of it.
That's all it is. All right, next topic.
And it's very similar both ways. And, it's best described in the cinematic scope that it was a weaponized Oscorp glider. So I guess the Norman Osborn portrayed by Willem Dafoe he's kind of coming from a military technician, scientific background.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Whereas the comic book version is just very strictly scientific. And so he kind of fashioned that glider by his own means, by his own tech. And then in the films, it's like, oh, it was supposed to be a military grade weaponry.
Okay.
And it was meant to be in the army, but then he was like, I'm going to take it. And I'm
this is for
make
me
it
now.
mine. Yeah. And so he takes it, he weaponizes it. And then the pumpkin-shaped explosives. So it was, you know, for me, I never quite really thought about it. Like, why is it
pumpkin,
why pumpkin, right? Because I don't know. I don't immediately think goblin, pumpkin. I think like the headless horseman and pumpkin. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Goblin and pumpkin?
Yeah.
No, not really.
No, I wouldn't have a. Yeah.
It's because of this goblin that I think of pumpkin.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. Well, that look of the goblin.
Yeah.
For some reason makes sense.
I don't know where it comes from.
But.
and so I did a little digging.
Okay.
Into why pumpkin. So more or less, of course, it's because they're following a Halloween theme. Okay, so he's wearing this facade because it is supposed to be a mask.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a costume.
Yeah.
And so he's following a Halloween theme, masquerading as a goblin, complete with jack-o'-lanterns. I'm like, oh, this must be maybe something from the 60s that was more common of a thing, a concept. But in reality, there are things called pumpkin bombs and pumpkin explosives.
Oh.
So I'm figuring that that's kind of where the meeting point of military tech science Dr. Osborn met with the common comic book version. And in reality, they're conventional high explosive bombs and ballistic simulators filled with Comp B. So it's an explosive. Yeah. And so apparently it was coined by a U.S. Navy Captain William S. Parsons and Dr. Charles C. Lauritsen of the California Institute of Technology.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. The name pumpkin bomb was an old term used for the large ellipsoidal shaped munition casing. So it looks like a pumpkin. And thus they're called pumpkin bombs.
I mean, it also just fits with the aesthetic of who the goblin is. Maybe
I know, right?
You have this like descriptive like deep dive that you went on, and we'll probably ask like the creators or whatever, and just be like,
cool.
yeah, she just went with the look.
Right?
It's cool.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, well, all right.
Okay, cool. That works for me.
Which is how most creative things happen. It's like you think there's this deeper meaning, and it's like, no, I saw it look cool.
I think I think you're right. And so sometimes the realistic the Comp B bombs were colored like pumpkins so that they were camouflaged. And so I don't know, like, how do you what do you think about the versions we see in the films? I don't quite remember the ones in Amazing Spider-Man, but I think they tried to kind of rip off the ones that Raimi
in the same
made.
vein.
Yeah,
because
because they had the little like you push the button and you can hear the.
Yeah, I almost think it looks like I mean, forgive me, like feel free to like correct me hard. It just looks like an unpeeled onion. That's almost like in blooming onion status, but like not fried because it has those ridges.
Those are 2,400 calories a piece, by the way.
Like it looks like that because it has like these little ridges at the top where you can like there's like slits and stuff. So it almost looks like more than like.
You know what it looks like to me?
What?
One of those chocolate oranges that's not unwrapped yet.
I would agree. That too. Yes.
But yeah, like I think they're pretty cool. Like I remember like at first when I first saw it, I was just kind of like, oh, I'm kind of upset that they're not actual pumpkins. You know what I mean? Like they were too tech. Like they were too.
Imagine they were actual pumpkins,
right?
Though. It could look cool. It could look super corny.
Exactly. like seeing them explode, and then there's just like innards everywhere, and pumpkin seeds.
Maybe we wouldn't have taken like Green Goblin as seriously if he had actuals. Like, is this guy throwing pumpkins?
Yeah, during a Thanksgiving film. Spider-Man is a Thanksgiving film, everybody.
I forgot it.
Do not forget. Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
Because isn't it like maybe this is just occurring to me. Didn't Pete fight? Oh, he fought a woman over.
Had to beat an old lady with a stick
for cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, wouldn't it be funny if he like fought her over like pumpkin filling or something like that?
That or stuffing, something like that.
Yeah. I think it was cranberry sauce.
Hilarious.
It's so good. But yeah, Thanksgiving. That maybe they did that on purpose too. They didn't want to do it too Halloweeny, but they were like, Thanksgiving is kind of pumpkin-y.
Sure.
Yeah, it grew on me very quickly because I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the way they depicted it in the movie too, and like the details and everything, pressing it or
and the detonation of it, and you know, it's just so cool. And I hate admiring the villain, but again, it's like the magic of the Green Goblin
and Norman,
Norman Osborn in particular,
really good,
that just makes it so good. And so, believe it or not, in the books, Norman does take on an alter ego or an additional persona in which he is called the Red Goblin. Do you want to take any stabs at why this might be?
I feel like I've heard of that too. A Red Goblin. I feel like I've seen that costume also. So
This is just like a devil, like
so this
alter
is
ego?
This is a more modern concept. So after acquiring the iconic symbiote, Osborn bonded with Carnage.
Oh my God.
and then, as if that wasn't enough, he then further injected himself with the Goblin formula to become the Red Goblin. So he became, as if he wasn't already
So he was
powerful,
Goblin, but with like a Carnage mind.
but with a frickin' symbiote. So if you see him, he's like, it looks like Carnage, but he's Goblin shaped. If that makes any sense.
Whoa. I gotta see a pic of this.
Yeah, he's funky. Let me pull one up. Red Goblin. Home. Yeah. So you see he's got like fire breathing and he's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, that
he's
looks
got a crazy
menacing
tail, and you kind of get the idea this dude is like 8 feet tall.
Oh my God, this looks
He's
menacing.
so scary. But yeah, it's a pretty sick version of him. When so Gobby goes through these moments, it's part of the amnesia of the character where he goes in and out of consciousness and remembers things that he didn't know and or did know, and then he forgot, or Osborn took over again and Goblin takes over, and so they go back and forth, and parts of his memory he relapses.
Yeah.
And so after he rediscovered as the Red Goblin that Parker was also Spider-Man, because keep in mind, Gobby is the first villain that ever knew and found out that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are the same person. And it's kind of funny, and I think I wrote it down further in my notes, but I'll just mention it now, that he did exactly what every villain should do, and it's just he followed him home. He followed him home, and he was like,
Peter?
Yeah, exactly. He was like, Peter Parker is Spider-Man? And then, that's it. He knows.
We'll meet again, Spider-Man! That's like my favorite.
I love
That's like one of my favorite scenes, because he's on like a hobbled glider, but he's gliding through the Macy's Day Parade
with
or whatever it is.
The sputtering of the...
He's like, we'll meet again, Spider-Man!
And the inflection that his voice takes. Oh my gosh. So once, as the Red Goblin, once he rediscovers that Peter is Spider-Man, he goes after, as Goblin does, he goes after the loved ones. And so he tries to once again kill all his friends and his family members, aka Aunt May. And but thankfully, you know, because he's learned from his mistakes of the past, Spidey got friends to help him battle the Red Goblin. And so this time he had Miles Morales. This time he had Cindy Moon and Johnny Storm to help him battle this dude. Finally took him down. So while like they're battling it out, unfortunately there was a casualty, a major casualty in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. And so Osborn himself kills Flash Thompson.
Oof.
Yeah.
Dang.
And then this is kind of the part where, you know, it's like kind of the superhero thing where I'm going to end this. And then Peter takes out Carnage. Ooh. So they lost Flash Thompson and then Carnage is no more. So it's like, oh gosh. And at this point, Flash has kind of died a couple of times. I don't know. Poor Flash. But this is the nail in the coffin. So we have not seen the MCU counterpart of this. This is obviously, I mean, this is something else that they can do because we have now seen Carnage, and Carnage is still in the universe because Wait, did you see Carnage?
Yeah,
you saw
yeah,
Carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of Carnage, spoiler alert, once they take out Cletus Cassidy, isn't there a part of that symbiote still floating around? Like,
yeah, I don't know where it went.
Because I'm like, am I getting it confused?
Oh, yeah.
It
went
right?
on the, I don't know if it was like the security guard dude.
Yeah. So it's still floating around.
Yeah.
There's still opportunity to do it. I don't know if they'll do it, but you know.
We'll see. We'll see how the Sony Spideyverse goes.
Exactly. And so how about some aesthetic talk?
Ooh. Yes.
So as I broke this up into Osborn and Gobby because again, it's kind of like they're so distinct. You have to kind of talk about both. So as Osborn, I don't know if you've noticed this in what you've seen of the character, but he has a very distinct hairstyle in the comic books, and it's like a rigidly drawn. It almost looks like it's trying to be cornrows, but it's like wavy.
Interesting.
And it's I gotta show you because it's such a look, and they've carried it throughout all the books, like for as long as I can remember. They've changed it up maybe once or twice, but here, check this out. So they always have this very distinct hairstyle.
And Widow's Peak.
And a widow's peak. And the hairline. Yeah, it's like, and it gives them a somewhat goblin-like demeanor, if you will.
Sure. Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you why they do that. They just did it. It was just kind of a thing. It was kind of a Steve Ditko and John Romita thing. And, you know, of course, he's a super duper token businessman. He's got a 3-piece suit. He's got the tie, and he's always well dressed. Very much like, Willem Dafoe portrays him in those films. And same with Harry. Harry is very cufflinks and, you know, they always look proper and rich. Fun fact, do you know the thing about Dafoe and his teeth?
Oh, no, I don't.
So, and I remember this because it was so jarring just because I was familiar enough with Willem Dafoe at the time. But as Norman Osborn, he's wearing fake teeth, prosthetic, perfectly pristine
white
teeth. And the first time that we actually see Willem Dafoe's teeth as they are in real life is when he has the confrontation with himself in the mirror. And that classic goblin face comes out. And he does that sneer that like slowly grows.
Yeah.
That's the first time we actually see Willem Dafoe's real teeth in Spider-Man. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's so cool. But it was an interesting way also for them to kind of like break apart. Like he is no longer this facade of a businessman.
Yeah.
This is who he is.
Yeah.
The Goblin. And then of course the aesthetics are more interesting for a Goblin. In the comics, you know, like on the trading cards here, very classic Goblin look. He's wearing gloves and he's got this, you know, I don't know what you would call it, tunic sort of thing
like
going
purple
on.
Garb.
Yeah. And the little elf hat thing.
Yeah.
And he's got a crossbody bag at all times with the pumpkin bombs in him.
If anything, he's a hype beast. He got the crossbody bag. He got purple going. He's he has a fit going on for sure.
Does he got some sick kicks? That's so good. And yeah, so as I kind of mentioned earlier, he's got a mask and a helmet. So there are iterations of this where it's a goblin mask. It's a goblin helmet. But other iterations of the goblin have physically transformed Osborn's face, that he literally becomes that goblin. And so it's no longer just a prosthetic or something he bought at a Halloween store. But yeah, he originally wore a mask to complete the demented look. And then on the other side of the spectrum with the cinematic universe, like I mentioned before, he weaponized an army suit. That's right. Which is what we see in the first Raimi films. And in No Way Home, I thought, oh man, when I first saw what he came out with, because I don't think we've actually even talked about this, but what I loved about Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin in No Way Home is that, sure, you see that there's that familiar suit. He's wearing the
green one, yeah.
The first one comes in, he's wearing the classic look.
Yeah.
But once he destroys the helmet, once he runs off trying to find himself or find what he's familiar with, and he's now wearing that torn hoodie, that is reminiscent of the comic book version because it's tattered and it looks like I don't know if I have a good picture of it, but yeah, it's supposed to be like a tattered version of this. Yeah, and you have parts of the green.
A sash almost.
Yeah, and it was like a dark mauve purple.
Yeah.
And then you could see the peaks of green coming through.
Yeah. And his mask was off, so
his mask was off, and it was, but it was so great because it was like the natural look of Willem Dafoe as
I think
Goblin.
My favorite piece of aesthetic was when he went to Feast.
Yes.
With Aunt May, and he wasn't in Goblin outfit, but he was in like a
stealing donuts
in a coat, and it was a purple coat.
It was a purple coat,
and then like a green inside, and I'm like, oh, those are like super reminiscent of the comic book colors.
Yeah, because and it's a hoodie. So you don't even see him pull up the hoodie. So you fast forward through the movie. So he's got this somewhat pristine thing that he kind of got somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
He found it from somebody. And then it isn't until the scene in Happy's apartment when he's going to town on Parker, and they're going through the freaking like flooring, and they're battling it out, that you start to see that's when it starts tattering, and that's when it starts ripping apart. And that ultimately brings him to the look that he does have in the comic books. And then finally in the what do you call it, the lobby, Gobby in the lobby.
Nice.
When he's on the glider and he's going after Aunt May, he finally has the hood up. And
then he has that like...
And he has that look that we see in Spider-Man 1 when he confronts himself as the Goblin for the first time. So it's kind of like, that's of course the Norman's on sabbatical, honey, is like iconic. But I do feel that the first time we see him fully reemerge as Green Goblin is that moment when he's on the glider. And he turns around and he's got that look on his face.
And he throws that pumpkin bomb.
And that freaking pumpkin bomb. Oh, the minute that he turned that thing on, I was like, there was so much going on in my head because I was like, that's the first time that this Peter Parker is experiencing that.
Yeah.
And also, like, he intuitively knows because of his spider sense, spiders, Peter Tingle, that is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then the minute it leaves his hand, I was like, oh, this is where the movie's going to get real dark.
Real dark. I'll be completely honest. I did not expect an Aunt May death. For some whatever reason, knowing like my Spider-Man lore, that obviously a Spider-Man death is incredibly inevitable.
Yeah.
Because that's his turning point as a character, as a Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was not expecting Aunt May to die.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I have no idea why. But then when she did,
but I didn't either.
I was like, oh, shoot.
And the crazy thing
I teared up. I think I may have cried a little bit.
Oh, I definitely bawled. But see, this is the crazy thing because like, I remember like, like fans like us, like you and I, when I watched it the very, very first time, the moment she said, with great power must also come great responsibility.
Which is comic accurate,
by the way. Yeah, it's
that's what I
comic
learned.
accurate. I heard guys in the audience all go, "Oh shit." She said the words, and we all knew collectively, like a hive mind, that she's gonna die. She's gonna dying. And yeah, and then
and Peter can't do anything about it.
Anything about it.
Yeah.
And I remember, like in that moment, immediately thinking, "Oh my God, they're actually doing it like the game." Because Aunt May dies in the game.
Yeah.
And I was like,
in a different way, but yes.
In a very different way.
But like emotionally,
it was
it's
her.
it's
like,
there.
Yeah, and like he's actually losing someone that in the books for a very long time.
It's always been Uncle Ben.
It's always been a joke too.
Oh, really?
That
Okay.
Aunt May doesn't die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that she's always on the on death's doorstep, but she never
She
quite
always
goes
gets
through.
out of it.
She always
it
gets
was
out
always
of it.
like, because like me, it was
Constantly.
always Uncle Ben.
Right.
Like that was
right,
like,
right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
'Cause
so
it's-
for them to finally do it.
yeah.
And at the hands of Goblin like that, that's why, and this is kind of why I feel like I got ahead of myself and I wanted to reserve it for this episode, is that I think that's why that's another reason why I don't think we're going to see a Gwen Stacy, because this Peter has really lost everything. He's
legitimately
you
everything.
cannot do this dude dirty anymore. Like,
Yeah.
come on, he lost MJ. Sort of.
Well, he lost
MJ
he lost his
in
best
a way.
friend. He lost MJ.
He lost his
no
wife.
one, well, not everyone, but you know,
Yeah.
a good majority of people in that world do
Yeah.
not know that he
Right.
is Spider-Man.
All the personal relationships he had crafted,
done.
they're all gone.
He's truly
Yeah.
on his own
yeah.
for the
And
first time.
Yeah. Peter Parker has nobody.
Yeah.
Peter Parker has absolutely nobody.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was just like, yeah, you know, like after Goblin, and I think that's also something that, I mean, maybe if they do continue the trilogy, with a new trilogy, that moment with Goblin is really going to stick with him. And that's, even if we never see Norman Osborn again,
Yeah.
maybe if we do see a Harry Osborn, that could carry over. And maybe that pain will really like take a hold of him and like affect him.
Yeah.
But I think the damage is.
Yeah,
It's
because he's the
there.
only one that has that knows what happened.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He lived
I-
it. It was his life.
I
you
mean,
know?
yeah, when like that apartment scene, that even just that whole fight scene,
Right.
I was like, this is incredibly visceral.
Yeah.
And like you really see just how that was like another testament to like how psychotic Goblin was.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one move they always replay it where Spidey gets on top of Gobby and like punches him,
Yeah.
punches him, and then like on the third one, like Goblin's smiling. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
And then he just body slams him through 3 floors.
Dude.
And I was like,
And you can feel the force like Holland had while doing that.
that whole fight, you can feel the
it's
force
insane.
of both.
Yeah.
It was like,
It was so intense.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then leading up to that final fight where Tom was not pulling any punches.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that last fight, you can just see it was like a culmination.
So intense.
And I loved it because like people are always like harping on Tom's like ferocity in these movies. Mm-hmm. And so to see him just go God mode and go just bat crazy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah.
And I think and it kind of makes me appreciate his growth as Spider-Man,
yeah.
because in the first film, like you kind of get these flickers of that energy, right? Like in
Yeah.
the first film, it's like when he's literally face down in the sand and he's bleeding and he's in his homemade suit and he's trying to get up. I feel that energy is then carried over. The synergy carries over to Far From Home when he's on the bridge with Mysterio.
Yeah.
And then the whole switch up with the gun.
Yeah.
I feel that, and then it kind of like it enhances it, like it escalates, right? And then that same energy is then carried over to the Goblin fight scene.
It's a good progression.
It's great
that I feel
progression.
goes overlooked sometimes.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's like I feel like some people are completely misjudging Holland and his performance, because it's those little nuances in those particular scenes for me that I feel like really like pulled it together for me, for him as Spider-Man.
Yeah, I agree. That Peter Tingle scene before against Mysterio, and then him reading where that gun was, I was like, that's a growth period. That's a growth moment right there. But yeah, so that final fight, it was just like a total culmination of just, I think it's just Peter becoming Spider-Man and then becoming an adult, having adult reactions and adult emotions.
Yeah,
you know, like
I think so too.
He's never anytime he's made a mistake, he's able to make up for it or get it back. But Aunt May's dead at this point.
Yeah,
you can't take that back. You can't bring her back. Like, so
yeah.
And then which is great, but then you have Toby's Peter come in and kind of be like, this is not what we do. Like this, you're better than this type of thing, and then that's just like total full circle.
Good. It's so good.
It's people said this online too. Like, it's the fact that the two other Spider-Men are helping. Oh, Andrew Garfield said this. This is the two other Spider-Men helping Tom in his journey as Spider-Man, because they've gone through it already tenfold.
Yeah.
So now, like, we're his guidance, so that he doesn't make the mistakes like we made.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Oh, Andy, so are you ready for a pop quiz? I think it's the last one.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's try it out.
So speaking of aesthetics, and I mentioned this earlier again, the color theory and the importance of color in not only comic books but in art in general. So aside the Green Goblin, can you name at least three other Marvel characters that wear green and purple?
3 Marvel characters?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my first guess is Hulk.
Okay. Great job.
Oh, green and purple.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, man.
See, you get the first one and then you're like, this is easy. And
No, but it's like, because that's very obvious. But then there's probably much more like obscure characters, maybe.
There are,
Like, for some reason, I wanted to say Captain Marvel because she did wear green.
Okay.
In the movies, at least. But
the Kree outfit.
Yeah. But we're talking about.
But we're talking like straight up. That is their persona.
Okay.
So they are very much like Hulk.
It's pretty much comic
book
accurate.
It's always a green. It's always purple. It's always
shorts,
green.
Whatever. Yeah.
So you got one. I mean, honestly, for a minute I was like, because I wrote down a couple and then I was like,
Can I ask questions?
Yeah, sure.
Are these last two characters, have they been on screen?
So I listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I named 7.
Okay.
Of the 7, only one has not
been on screen.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
But this is based off of comic book.
Yeah.
So.
But I just wanted to get that deduction out the way. Because if it was like all comic book, I'd be like, ooh, okay, interesting. Okay, purple and green. Mm-hmm. Like their character is purple.
Like, you know how Iron Man is red and yellow, and Cap is red, white, and blue.
Yeah. These characters are defined
prominently green and purple.
Wow. You would think this is easy. It's not, guys. There's a lot of pressure.
Right.
There's a lot of pressure on hand.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough
green
one.
and purple. Wow. Who is purple? That's my first thing. Purple.
Yeah.
Dude, this is going to
it's harder than you thought, right?
Yeah, it's going to frustrate me just because it's like I can never put something like a finger on something immediately.
I will say pretty much all of them, give or take a couple.
Yeah.
All Spider-Man affiliated.
Wow. Wow.
Put that in your smoking pipe.
Oh, wait. Duh. What the
smoking pipe?
Oh, my God. Okay. I'm annoyed that I didn't even go to this one after.
Uh-huh.
Mysterio. Right?
Yeah. Good job. There you go. See?
Mysterio.
You just don't you're like.
Yeah, you got to put 2 and 2 together because then you
putting
think
them
like,
all.
Wait, this guy had a freaking purple cape and a green corny suit.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mysterio and a big
Yeah.
bobblehead.
Yeah. Disco ball.
Yeah.
We call it the disco ball.
Freaking snow globe of a head. Okay. Wow. Ooh.
So name one more.
I know.
Give me one more.
Wait. Okay. So Mysterio, Hulk.
And they don't all have to be necessarily bad people
Yeah.
because Hulk isn't necessarily a bad
Yeah,
person.
yeah. I'm trying to think of heroes too that are purple and
It's tough.
green.
Yeah.
Oh wow, purple and green. Oh god, who are the heroes? Villains. No. Why am I blanking out so freaking hard?
Do you want some hints?
Sure.
2 of them are reptiles. Or reptilian of some sort.
Oh man. Oh wait, is that?
Come on, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember like in the movie or what panels I've seen. Is the lizard
Yes.
purple shorts?
Yes. And a white
lab coat? Jesus Christ.
So the other ones I listed. So Jeff named the Hulk, Mysterio, and the Lizard. And among the other ones I listed entirely are Hulk, the Mandarin. The Mandarin's kind of.
Okay, I would have never guessed the Mandarin.
It's depending on which period of the Mandarin we're talking here. Mandarin, Mysterio, Fing Fang Foom. He's a giant green dragon with purple shorts.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And Rocket makes fun of the purple shorts in the video game. Where are your purple shorts at?
Yeah.
The Lizard, Kang the Conqueror.
Yes. God. How come Wow. Okay.
And then, are you ready for my judgment face? Gwen Stacy.
Oh, okay.
Well done, though. That was pretty good. That's a tough one because I mean, and you know what I wanted to talk about very briefly. If I found from a wonderful article called Superhero Color Theory. So much like the physics of superheroes, there is a color theory book about what the representation of colors that are used for particular characters might have meaning of. And so, like you see these power colors in certain combinations over and over and over again when it comes to comic book and colorists that create them. And so from this paper, it states, green and purple is frequently a sign of scientific hubris growing out of control. Purple symbolizes creativity, but in the comics it can often be refined to creation of powerful science. Combine that with green's growth or nature, and you have a combination that suggests monstrous scientific geniuses. And that's really, it's just like, ta-da!
Well.
It's very, and of those characters that I mentioned, I mean, with the exception of Gwen Stacy, who even in her way,
She's smart, though.
She was a scientific genius, yeah. So all of these characters, what they all have in common is that there's genius and maniacal nature, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of these colors and the way that they're depicted in comics is very important, and it's worth looking into because it's all with reason. And so from there we're going to jump to affiliations, and so this one I glossed over very quickly because there are other things that we need to talk about that are much more important as far as the Green Goblin is concerned, but this is hardly the first time we've ever even mentioned Stormin Norman in our show. And so we've briefly touched on some affiliations in previous episodes, including, like the Thunderbolts and the Dark Avengers and the Goblin Army and the Sinister Six. And so, those aside, how did you feel about his sort of coalition with the Sinister Five in No Way Home?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I want to say, yeah. I want to say like that Sinister 5, 6, whatever.
Right.
It was like just one big Easter egg, you know?
Yeah.
Which is great.
I agree.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean that would be great to see though, right?
If you had to pick between Venom and Harry for the 6th, or even Mysterio, who would it be?
If I had to pick between Venom, Harry, and Mysterio for the final
To complete
out
a
of that,
6.
out of
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Oh.
Because like if you think about it, yeah, they pretty much covered every major villain in the Spider-Man films. Period.
I want to say Venom for some reason,
Yeah.
but Mysterio with that group would be also like
God, that would have been wild.
would have been wild because it's just crazy people.
Yeah.
Like like Norman and Mysterio would just be stupid. Like it's two smart guys.
Yeah.
Like
You think that maybe their ego would get in the way.
yeah. I mean,
Right?
like look, like freaking Mysterio worked with Tony Stark, and so it's like he's on a mission to just
Yeah.
But Venom because Venom is just iconic, like
Venom, I think the symbiote would be trying to get to Parker the entire time. And then Eddie's just like, what the hell's going on here? Constantly. I don't know. I don't know who I would pick out of all of them. I don't think it would be Harry because you don't need 2 goblins. But Venom and Mysterio would be interesting.
yeah, I think it would be it'd be crazy. But Venom, I think, would be insane as well.
Yeah.
Especially seeing, at least Tom Holland fight with a symbiote.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait. Hopefully we get to see that.
Yeah, hopefully.
So we got a listener comment from Instagram from speaking of Captain Cheese.
Oh, yeah. Woo!
He asks, is Spider-Man Green Goblin's biggest threat?
Ooh, speaking of Venom and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Are we talking about should we talk about it both cinematically and
yeah, I mean,
is there a concrete like list of or discussion of what people or the creators or Stan has said this is Spider-Man's greatest foe?
well, it's funny you said that because I actually wrote this down. So Stanley himself has said, and I switched this around because I just felt it flowed better. But Stan said that while Dr. Octopus is Spider-Man's greatest enemy, Green Goblin is Peter Parker's greatest enemy.
Ooh.
And I was like, you know what?
Ooh.
That's interesting because, it's Spider-Man can handle the Green Goblin.
Yes.
He can handle the Green Goblin.
100%.
It's Peter Parker that can't.
Yeah.
And I think Willem Dafoe even says it as Norman in the first film. What is it? What is the line? First we'll get his and then we'll get his heart, or what is he saying?
Yeah, something like that.
Right?
Oh, it's Norman talking to himself.
And he's
right?
talking to himself.
He's like, first we'll get his or something. And
Yeah.
then, something like that. Yeah.
So my first thought when I saw this question was that no, Spider-Man isn't his biggest threat. I believe that for Norman Osborn or the Green Goblin, his ego is his biggest threat.
Yeah.
And he himself is his biggest threat because he is battling against Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin internally. And that is something we do see in No Way Home, at least for a little bit.
For a good amount. Yeah.
You know, I feel like because he has 2 people living in his head at all times, he's constantly contending with himself.
Yeah, to answer the question, I was like, is he? I've always heard Venom is his top worst enemy also, or Mysterio, or even Doc Ock.
Peter.
Huh?
For Peter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just for Spider-Man.
For Spider-Man.
in general.
Yeah.
I guess. But I do on that note of Green Goblin is Peter's worst, right? Was that what it was? What was it?
Peter Parker's greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's because of Goblin's physicality, but also because he'd know, like we said, he's the only one to know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And I think, I would agree that Green Goblin, is like top pretty up there because psychologically he can mess him up too.
For sure.
I mean, we see that in
100%.
No Way Home.
Yeah.
Like
He messes with his head all the time.
kill that man.
I just can't.
I'll say it. And he did it with a smile on his face.
Yeah,
Do you know
right?
how psychotic you gotta be to be like, I'm gonna send this glider into her right now?
Right. And then I'm going to throw a bomb on them both.
I'm gonna throw a bomb. Like, maybe he died, but she definitely will.
Yeah, exactly. And then to laugh about
He was
it
like,
as he goes away.
Yeah. Psychotic behavior. You love to see it.
He killed the family dog. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh.
Like, come on. Cemented.
Yeah, cemented. It's just one of those common things, and it's kind of like we talked about this before, in that people have like their greatest arch nemesis, and this is why we talk about things the way we do on this show, and very much I think it's just like it's like things that go together. Unfortunately, they're destined to be at each other's throats for the rest of their lives. It's like Batman and
Joker.
It's exactly like Batman and Joker.
I don't want to kill you.
Yeah.
Like you.
And that's the thing, right? Is that Bats never. He can kill the Joker. He just never does.
And the Joker can kill the Batman.
They never do.
Because you complete me.
I didn't know we were gonna get a Heath Ledger here.
My favorite. But then same thing with
it's very
Goblin
true.
and Spidey.
Yeah, absolutely true. And
I love that. By the way, I love that dynamic between a hero and a villain, because it's like there's gonna be always endless stories with them.
Yeah.
They're never gonna it's never like, oh, like, did the Batman win? Did the Joker win? Did Gobby win? Did Spidey win? And it's like, no, they're both losing because they're at some point they're competing with each other. Right. Which is like demented in a way.
Exactly. So when it comes to love interests,
nice.
This guy's got nothing. He's got nothing.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, if you wanna listen to Gwen Stacy and what we talked about with her, revisit. And I even wrote here on my notes.
I forgot about that story. Oh my god.
I wrote here in my notes. I said, discuss this in episode 23. Revisit it there because the delivery and the reaction can't possibly be replicated.
It's so gross.
So you need to
to
go back. If you did not listen to Gwen Stacy, listen to Gwen Stacy. You'll know what we'll be talking about. But there is a Sins Past storyline.
Such a messed up storyline.
It has been retconned, and it's just glorious. But I did really very quickly want to mention that there was a short series that I meant to recommend on that episode. It was called Marvels, and it was done written by Kurt Busiek.
Oh, okay.
And it was art by legend Alex Ross, who's tremendous in comic books in general. And essentially, it's a short series. I think it was 6 issues or something. And I have one graded here of number 2, with the Green Goblin and Gwen Stacy on the cover. And it's basically the tragedy and the death of Gwen Stacy told through the eyes of a bystander, who's also a reporter, named Phil Sheldon, and so it's so interesting to see this storyline, the classic storyline that we're not going to talk about again because it was so dense and so exhausting. We've already done that. We don't need to revisit it. But I just wanted to mention that. Imagine being the bystander that's on the ground watching the fight on the bridge from afar. And so it essentially examines that whole thing and how superheroes and villains coincide in that series. It's really great. So be sure to pick that up. But I did want to touch on the one and only true love interest that Norman Osborn has, and that is Emma Lyman Osborn, who is the never mentioned in the cinematic universe mother of Harry Osborn.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Never hear about her.
Never.
So
Only in like the Spider-Man game you hear about Osborn's
yeah, that's
wife.
true. Yeah. So I mean, I'll be up front. She's only got 2 handfuls of appearances in the books at all, and even then, it's very cameo like. So the 2 were college sweethearts, tale as old as time.
Nice.
So I'm just gonna say it the way, I'm just gonna spill the truth here. She essentially faked her own death to get the fuck away from Osborn after realizing what a monster he was.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
She was like, this is too much. I am out. Goodbye, cruel world. And faked her own death.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? Yeah. And so Emma's got her own set of craziness in the books, much of which involves Harry, of course.
Yeah.
And there's even a portion of the lore where Harry, he wants to get rid of what the name Osborn carries.
Sure.
And he eventually goes by Harry Lyman, which is his mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
And this is after Secret Wars. He just wanted to cut ties with Osborn. He's reverted back to it now in modern comics because now he's like, I can make it a better name and I can make it stand for good.
Okay.
And bless his heart, he's trying, but it'll never happen. And so this is, again, it's the rare occurrence where they never talk about a romantic interest for Norman Osborn, and this is the one instance where I feel like they never, at least in Willem Dafoe's case, never talked about her. Did they? I don't remember him saying your mother, like nothing, right?
No, never really brought it up.
I don't. Maybe Harry did, but Norman himself doesn't mention her.
I don't remember. Nothing really sticks out to me.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So as far as other versions go, again, we didn't get into teams because, again, it's so dense, but I wanted to focus more on the important stuff. And so we're kind of going to just roll through these last details. So aside the Osborns, there are no cinematic versions aside the one we see in Into the Spider-Verse, which is, if you remember, that hulking, gigantic monster version of Osborn that even Pete says in the movie, or is it Pete? Or yeah, I think it's Pete, and he's like, "Oh, hey there, Norman, you're looking like," he like makes a joke about it.
Super.
So it's like very open that he is the Green Goblin, and he is like maniacal and a madman in that film. And that version of the Goblin is heavily based off of the Ultimate Spider-Man, Osborn Goblin, who, again, took the formula and it mutated his face.
Yeah.
And he became mutated. And so, I briefly mentioned Goblin Nation just a couple of minutes ago, but so the Goblin Nation is exactly what it sounds like. So imagine, if you will, New York riddled with goblins.
It's like a Facebook group.
Yeah. It probably is. And so this essentially was an opportunistic moment in time during the displacement of Parker. So this is the era in which Doc Ock took over Parker's body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so Osborn was like, "Oh, Peter Parker's dead. I'm going to create an army and take over the New York." And, and he tries to do the whole thing, and it didn't work out. Surprise, surprise.
Of course.
And so here on out, we're just going to, again, there are tons and tons and tons of goblins. And so we're just going to talk about a few of the notables here. So there's Goblin King, who is Phil Urich, the nephew of Ben Urich, the journalist from The Bugle.
Oh.
He's been in a couple movies. I think Sam Raimi played...
Okay.
Ted Raimi played him maybe in the first film. Oh, no, that maybe was the other guy. He originally emerged as the 5th Green Goblin. 5th, mind you.
Jeez.
But he was the first heroic Green Goblin. That actually teamed up with street-level heroes until the formula took over and broke him and he became chaotic and psychotic again. The Hobgoblin, who we mentioned at the top of the show, who is AKA Ned Leeds. Originally Parker's friend at the Bugle, husband of reporter Betty Brant, portrayed by Angry Rice, and then Ned Leeds, of course, portrayed by Jacob Batalon. He was basically brainwashed while in pursuit of the true Hobgoblin, taken down by the Hobgoblin, Roderick Kingsley, who we haven't seen or heard of yet either. Yeah. The Grey Goblin, who is Gabriel Stacy. So this is the kid that I forgot whose first name was one of the twins that Gwen Stacy didn't actually birth. So Gabriel, he was from the Since Past storyline, and he wanted to take after his father, but his own sister, Sarah, took him down instead. And then there's simply the Goblin.
Nice.
Who, if you can believe it, is an alternate universe Peter Parker.
Oh, wow.
And so this is the Peter Parker who truly stopped pulling his punches.
Oh, okay.
So this is after the death of Gwen, Parker then assumes Osborn's identity.
Oh, jeez.
And then becomes the Goblin. And that's it. That becomes his persona.
Oh,
and
wow. That's dark.
It's very dark. And then it isn't until much later that, and this is during the whole Inheritor storyline where, I think I mentioned this to you before, Morlun and the spider, they're like spider vampires. They feast on spiders of all universes.
Oh,
so they quite literally drain their energy and eat them.
Yeah.
And so this Goblin actually ended up sacrificing himself after he discovered that the Spider Woman who assisted him in doing so was Gwen Stacy, who is Earth 65 Spider-Gwen. And then some other notable goblins, the two-faced goblin, okay? I'm going to say that again. Two-faced goblin of the DC versus Marvel miniseries. Aptly named Harvey Osborn.
Wow.
Yeah. And he looks exactly how you might imagine him. There's Proto-Goblin, a.k.a. Nels Van Adder. There's Menace, a.k.a. Lily Hollister, one of Harry's fiancés. See, it runs in the family.
Jesus.
Monster, a.k.a. Carly Cooper, who is one of Peter's girlfriends. She's like blonde and she's got glasses and she was interesting. And then sadly, Green Goblin, aka Normie Osborn. So, inevitably, in another universe, an adversary to Spider-Girl, who is Peter Parker's daughter in that universe, Normie Osborn becomes the Green Goblin, and it's same old song.
Here we go again.
Yeah. So it's just on and on and on and on. Again, like you said, like Batman and Joker, Spider-Man and Green Goblin, just endless.
It's made for each other, yeah.
Made for each other, never parting, BFFs for life.
Love that. And
in death. And so here's our favorite part, Jeff. Almost was.
I'm curious now.
Yeah, do you know any?
No, for Willem's version, no.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. And I do remember this first bit. So Billy Cudrup was initially cast to play Norman Osborn over Willem Dafoe. But he had to drop out because I think he was doing, what was that movie? Oh my gosh. Shoot, what's that movie with Kate Hudson?
Oh my God! No, not How to Lose a Guy. That's Matthew McConaughey.
No.
Some rom-com, romantic movie.
No. Almost Famous.
Almost Famous.
Yes.
Yes, right.
So Billy Cudrup he had to choose between the two, and he ended up taking Almost Famous, which I can't blame him for.
Yeah.
But he also felt that he was too young to portray James Franco's dad, which makes total sense. He's only 10 years older than him in real life, so it kind of, I kind of figured that was fine. But some of the other men who tested for for Norman Osborn include, but are not limited to, this is so wild, dude.
Mind you, this is 2001, right?
2001, so we're thinking maybe they're prepping for the film around late 1999.
Yeah, 99,
going into 2000. turn of the century. Britney Spears and NSYNC are taking over the world.
I know, yeah.
John Travolta. Oh my God.
Okay.
Woof. Mel Gibson.
Okay.
Okay. John Malkovich.
Huh.
Who was supposed to portray Vulture in Raimi's Spider-Man 4.
That I can see.
He was cast. Because they were in preparatory mode for Spider-Man 4.
Yeah.
So he was cast as the Vulture. But first he was cast, he auditioned for Norman Osborn.
Okay.
And so Raimi was like, hey, come on back. I think I have a role for you.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I see that.
Right?
I see that.
Edward Norton, who later became the Hulk
Yeah.
in The Incredible Hulk that Geoffrey refuses to believe is MCU canon.
Whatever.
And our favorite, Nicolas Cage, Johnny
Of course.
Blaze,
Jesus Christ.
Ghost Rider.
That's like it's like the names of that
Right.
of that year.
That era,
That era.
right?
Like, geez.
Oh yeah.
Man.
But no, Willem Dafoe got it. Got in
Thank
shape
God.
for it. Oh man. Yeah.
Thank
So
God.
good.
Kills it.
Can't-
Iconic.
Truly can't imagine
Slay.
anything else.
That's
And
what
I-
he did. He slayed.
Yeah, right. Oh, get out.
Well, I mean, technically, he slayed
Oh,
himself
and he slayed himself.
and Aunt May.
Oh, too soon. God. So some suggested reading. I mean, where do you even start with this guy? So like I mentioned, for me at the top of the show, the original Amazing Spider-Man run from Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, John Romita Jr., and Jerry Conway. And those are compilations. Any issues from Amazing Spider-Man 73 and older, go for it.
Nice.
The Osborn Journals, 1996, from Glenn Greenberg and Kyle Hotz. Dark Reign, 2008, from Brian Michael Bendis and various artists. That's when the Thunderbolts and the Dark Avengers thing kind of takes over too. And then of course Siege, which is from 2010, from Brian Michael Bendis and my favorite, Olivier Coipel. If you can believe it, that is finally the end of the show.
Whoa, that's a lot. For a guy that's only been on screen, for a character that's only been on screen 3 times.
Do you want to guess how long? Should I look it up?
Like TRT wise?
Yeah, total.
Okay, so we have Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
We have Amazing Spider-Man 2. Mm-hmm. And we have Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh my gosh.
It's less than, because he was in a lot of screen time on Spider-Man 1. So, is there an immediate?
No, there's
It's less
not.
than, I want to say, of total screen time.
Yeah.
I think it's like less than 15 minutes.
I think that's a fair enough guesstimation.
Yeah, but, I mean, not to, spit on, ASM's Goblin, but it shows Willem Dafoe's take of Green Goblin just made such an impact on audiences and scared us into oblivion.
Just look at him, right? Like, oh my gosh, he's just. And I remember very distinctly, when Willem Dafoe got the role, or even seeing it in the theater and somebody like remarking like, yeah, dude looks like a goblin. He's perfectly cast.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, yeah, but it's not said to like demean him in any way, but it's like he truly was kind of made for that role just because he could control 2 personas very convincingly.
Yeah.
Which is
scary.
Scary as all hell.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so great that he embraced it coming back, and he really did double down in doing the physicality and the stunt work for himself. For No Way Home. Yeah, it's just so great. And
I think we brought this up. I forget in which episode. Maybe it was just like we were just like talking, but so like Dai and I have said before, we went to this early screening event for the second trailer of Spider-Man No Way Home. That's where Tom Holland surprised the audience and came out to speak and everything. And Tom brought up a scene of that he has with Goblin in one of the scenes with Goblin, and he said it was very, very incredibly emotional and visceral.
Right.
And we didn't know, as an audience, we didn't know at the time what he meant. We were
had
like,
no
"Ooh,
idea."
Okay. And then we watched the movie, and it's the final fight scene you see with him and Goblin, and you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like that's the fight, and Willem Dafoe did most of his like fighting also with
So
Tom
crazy.
as well, and then like the emotional gravity of that fight, what it entailed, and just held.
Yeah.
It was like okay, yeah, and then you just see Willem
Dude.
like what was that line that he said? Like I forget, but it was just like an emotionally exhausting like fight.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, I get it, but that's not only Tom's performance, but it's also just Willem's portrayal of Green Goblin.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and he for 66 years old. Woo!
wow, to do that physicality,
killing it,
crazy,
so great. So yeah.
That's why I was like, we need to do Goblin. It was after we saw No Way Home, we were like,
we got Duck Goblin.
like he deserves it. He upped his performance from the first Spider-Man Raimi film, and that was already hard to do.
Definitely agreed.
But
man,
he's so good.
I'm also kind of sad that we've covered him now. But that's fine, because I'm sure he'll come up in many a conversation hereafter.
Oh, 100%. He's made a lasting impact on just in general.
In general, not only cinematically, but also in the comic books. Yeah. So yeah, that's the show.
Ooh.
Thanks for listening.
Wow.
How you feeling, Jeff?
Oh my gosh.
Should we do more double episodes? Woo! Oh man, concert and comic book convention season is coming.
Full effect. We might have to do like a couple of these a week.
Oh my gosh.
Like even if we can't double up, it's just like we'll have to record like
different days. Different days. We got this. We got this, bro.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening. Thank you for sticking in there with us.
Oh, yeah.
Our next episode, we're going to venture off into a new distant land of character study.
Yes.
With the incomparable forthcoming Moon Knight.
Oh, that's exciting. Yes.
And it debuts on March 31st.
March 30th.
30th?
March 30th, I think. Yeah, March 30th.
Yeah, so that's coming up real quick.
Yeah, and then so...
Yeah, so be sure to watch that. I think we're covering him just after the first episode. Yeah, so...
Yeah, first episode or
two,
maybe two, but definitely first episode for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So hang tight for that, and I'm sure we have a lot of questions that are going to erupt. We're kind of taking it like we did the Loki, episode that of our character study, in that we recorded Loki kind of like in the near middle, almost halfway point of the show. Yeah. And so with Moon Knight, we decided to go ahead and do it right after the premiere and kind of get some fresh thoughts and and again, really dive into the surface level of this new sort of hero that the MCU is introducing on Disney Plus. So that's going to be great.
Yeah, exciting.
Super duper exciting. And so, we are Groot salute to Nats, Ariel, Laura, Tyler, Ed, Ashley, Melanie, Jenny, the Arachnerd, Katie, Andrew, Claire, Robin, and Jo Liz.
Woo!
Woo! And follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe.
Yeah. Woo! Once again, thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
She was there because of you. I may have struck the blow, but you... you are the one that killed her.